Okay, so we're going to start out with Daiwa, and they had a pretty quiet ICAST this year, just like a lot of other companies. Now, as far as bait casting reels go, they did come out with a Tranx 300 competitor in the brand new Tatula 300. Now, as you can see, this new Tatula 300 is using the most current Tatula frame, but since this is designed for heavy lines and for using big baits to target big fish, they gave it a pretty heavy duty 110 millimeter handle with some big beefy knobs, as well as a massive spool. Now, they ditched the zero adjuster in favor of a conventional cast control cap, and they say that this new Tatula 300 uses the reliable MagForce Z braking system, so that gives it a slight advantage over the Tranx for external brake adjustment, in my opinion. Now, at $269, Daiwa did make a smart move and priced it $10 cheaper than the Tranx 300. But let's just hope that the size is similar to the Tranx 300 as well, because I've actually seen a Tranx 300 in the glass at Bass Pro Shops, and that reel was just barely even bigger than the current METANIUM at the time. Now, in the laziest move of all time, Daiwa has also come out with a quote-unquote new Tatula Ct. Now, this was something I was expecting, but what I didn't expect was that this new Tatula Ct is not really new at all. It's basically the old reel with a change in knobs, handle nut, spool and spool tension knob color, and they gave it the Spider logo on the side plate as well as the Daiwa Vector logo on the top frame. Now, when this reel was first announced, the price was raised up by $10 to $139, but now I guess Daiwa realized that even their fanboys weren't that dumb and dropped the price back down to $129, just like the old model. Now, that would have been the last nail in the coffin for the Tatula Ct, because just as I predicted over a year ago, Shimano priced the SLX XT exactly the same as the old Tatula Ct and knocked it out of the Tackle Warehouse bestsellers list. Now, even with a correction in price, I don't know if that's really going to help this reel against that SLX, but maybe Daiwa secretly lightened up the spool on this reel to give it better performance and didn't tell anybody. Now, over on the spinning side, they came out with a new Laguna entry-level spinning reel and also came out with the Procyon mid-price spinning reel. And both of these reels were given the LT designation. Now, there was nothing of note on the rod side of things, as they've already announced the Rebellion line at the Bassmaster Classic earlier this year. So that's pretty much it for Daiwa. I'm pretty sure they probably had more they wanted to release, but of course, with the pandemic interrupting the supply chain and production chain, that was probably affected. But maybe they'll come out with more things later on this year, just like I heard Shimano is. Okay, so now it's time to talk about 13 Fishing, and they actually had a pretty big ICAST showing this year. Now, the big news in my opinion is the updating of 3 baitcasters, and we're going to start out with the Concept Z SLD, and SLD is short for slide. Now, I've been critical of 13 Fishing and their lack of externally adjustable brakes, and actually suggested to them that they need to hire an engineer to design a proprietary brake system for them. But instead, they came out with this crap. This is basically a dual braking centrifugal and magnetic system, just like countless reels before it. But the difference is that the magnetic adjustment is on the handle side now, and you adjust it with a lever that sits just above the spool instead of a dial on the side of the reel. Now, they claim this will save you time versus turning the reel over on its side to make adjustments to the magnets, and also in theory you should be able to make an adjustment in the middle of your cast. Now, I'd love to see someone do that on video. Now, I think the reel actually looks great with its flat gray paint and bright orange knobs. But whereas the original Concept Z had an aluminum frame, this reel has a carbon frame that they try to hype up with the marketing phrase cast iron carbon. Now, other than the braking system and the new frame material, all the specs are pretty much the same as the first Concept Z, but they did claim to have improved the CZB bushings. So despite the downgraded frame material, 13 Fishing actually jacked the price up, and by a lot. The Concept Z SLD retails for $275 versus $200 for the old reel. So this reel jumped out of CURADO K territory straight into CHRONARCH MGL territory. Not to mention there are a lot of other heavy hitting reels around this price point. So I personally predict that this reel will be just like the original Concept Z and be replaced in a couple of years once the novelty has worn off. Now, 13 Fishing has also finally updated two of their staple baitcasters, the Concept A and C, and the new models are the A2 and the C2, which after years of not changing have finally been updated. Their Concept A was a pretty popular reel and maybe their best seller, and it gets a nice refresh and updating rather than being an entirely new reel. Now, the big improvements that catch my eye is the drag rating, which has gone up to a whopping 25 pounds, and also the spool bearings seem to have been upgraded for better casting. As you can see, they kept the same color scheme of matte black with composite cork knobs that have a different shape, but it has lost its silver accents versus the previous model, and the price goes up a little bit to $180. Now, the Concept C2 gets a very similar update, but with one very big negative. They replaced the aluminum frame of the previous model with the cast iron carbon frame, and they kept the color white but ditched the silver components and composite cork knobs for black and EVA foam, and the price stays the same at $230. Now, I'm not sure if either of the spools were lightened in either of these reels because 13 Fishing did not mention it. Now, they also replaced the way overpriced Concept TXZ inshore saltwater reel with a new TX2. The big changes are that the frame is now carbon instead of aluminum, and they give you the composite cork knobs instead of the power knobs of the TXZ. The price has dropped though to still an overpriced $300 instead of $330. Now, on the rod side of things, they came out with a new Fate black rod that is actually black this time instead of that neon green, a Fate V3, which I'm not sure if it's a new model or an update to an old one, and then the new Omen black kayak and crankbait rods, which I have to say look really nice. They have a nice clean look that reminds me a little bit of the SHIMANO X Pride. So up next, I'm going to go over the new LEWS baitcasters, and we are going to start with the reel that I found the most interesting at this year's ICAST, and that's the LEWS Team Pro SP Speed Spool. Now, the bait finesse nerds will immediately notice that very shallow spool and wonder if LEWS had inadvertently released a bait finesse reel for the American market. Now, this is based on the same frame and body as the Custom Light, but instead of fancy graphite, the frame is now aluminum. They also upped the spool size from 32mm from 30mm in the Custom Light. Now, this reel is specifically designed for skipping and pitching. The super shallow spool was designed to keep the potential backlashes at a minimum while skipping, and you can see that there's a narrow channel in the middle of the spool and a hole where you're supposed to put your knot that can normally potentially cause problems by causing a hang up for the line during a cast. Now, what's interesting is that the braking system is the QuietCast centrifugal unit instead of magnetic, and you can see that there's a special zone on the brake dial for skipping. Now, this reel is obviously designed for heavy duty work based on its specs, but the bait finesse junkie in me wants to know what the weight of that spool is, and I might just get one to find out. Now the price is $199, which I find pretty reasonable, but only time will tell if the US market will respond to a spool this shallow from an American-based company. So next up is the new LEWS Kvd Lfs Reel. Now I don't follow the tournament scene that much, but apparently Kevin Van Dam left Quantum and went to LEWS recently, and of course wherever Kevin Van Dam goes, they're going to come out with a whole new rod and reel lineup with his name on it. Now the baitcaster looks to be a variation of the tournament MP LFS reel, but with different knobs and a different paint job. Now it is a little bit heavier and a little bit cheaper than the tournament MP as well. This reel will have the dual centrifugal / magnetic brake system, and as you can see, the paint is very similar to the Scorpion MGL, which is a nice shiny deep maroon color. Now the price is going to be only $139, which is a very good deal considering all the specs on this reel. Now the last reel is a new and improved Laser MG. Now basically LEWS updated the Laser MG to the new SLP super low profile frame, but gave it a nice red spool tension knob and nut retainer to really contrast nicely against the silver. Now this reel looks a lot better than the old Laser MG, and it looks a lot more expensive than it really is at only $79. Now of course at this price the frame is made of graphite and not metal, but all the competing reels at this price point also have graphite frames. Now I just took a look at all the competition at the $80 price point, and I really would only take the Shimano KS over this Laser MG if I had to pick, based purely on its looks versus the competition. Okay, so moving right along, next up is Abu Garcia, and they actually appear to only come out with some new spinning reels. And these reels are actually going to be on the opposite ends of the price range. Now on the lower end of the price range, Abu Garcia comes out with 3 new Max reels. The Max Pro, the Max STX, and the Max X. Now I didn't really dig into the information on these reels to find out the differences between them, but you can go on Tackle Warehouse's website and find that out for yourself. Now the prices on these reels range from $33 to $55, so very budget friendly. Now on the opposite end of the price spectrum, they've also come out with a new top of the range spinning reel called the Xenon. Now there's only a couple of pics of this Xenon reel, but as you can see it looks pretty sick. It's supposed to be made of pretty much magnesium everything, and it's supposed to be the lightest spinning reel in the world at, I believe, under 5 ounces. Now the price is going to be premium at $500, but I think it's supposed to come with an extra shallow spool as standard. Now that seems like a lot, but when you consider the spinning reels from Shimano and Daiwa that literally cost hundreds of dollars more, then it seems like a pretty good deal for anyone looking for a top-end spinning reel. Now the only other thing of note is that they updated their popular Veritas Rod Lineup. As you can see, they went with an all-white color scheme for the most part, instead of just the white blank like the previous model, but there are going to be 4 separate lineups. You're going to have your standard Veritas, which starts out at, I believe, $99, and then you're going to have your LTD range, which incorporates the Wind dry tack grips, and I believe those start out at $129. You're going to have your Veritas Toro for big baits and swim baits and whatnot, and those start out at $149. And then you're going to have your winch lineup, which is made for treble hook lures and starts out at $100. And as you can see, it sports a more traditional rod look. So next, we're briefly going to talk about Quantum, the company that Kevin Van Dam left. Now, they really didn't have a big ICAST, but they did come out with 2 interesting baitcasters. Now the first win is what seems to be yet another ACAST. Now Quantum just came out with the new ACAST S3s back in 2018, a reel which I have and have been very pleased with so far. Now this ACAST appears to be just an additional model to the ACAST lineup. Now the main changes are that the handle and knobs are supposed to be bigger, as well as the spool tension knob. But I personally think that the 2018 model is better looking, but apparently Quantum took it upon themselves to make some improvements on it. Once again, I think they're going to be selling this ACAST alongside the S3s. Now the second reel from Quantum might have the folks at Abu Garcia really nervous right now, and it's the new Invade baitcaster. Now why would this reel make Abu Garcia nervous? Because this new Invade reel is now officially the cheapest mainstream brand baitcaster you can get at only $40. Now we're used to seeing $40 reels from brands like KASTKING and whatnot, but not really a mainstream company. Now add that to the fact that it appears that Abu Garcia has raised the price of the Black Max to $55, and that just makes this Invade look even better. Now of course the specs aren't going to be the most impressive, but the most impressive thing about this reel is that it's actually backed by Quantum's 5-year warranty. Now I know the Black Max doesn't have that. Now if this reel proves to be as solid as the Black Max, we could have a new benchmark entry-level baitcaster. Now here's something interesting. A company that's famous for its saltwater spinning reels has come out with 2 new low-profile baitcasters, and that company is Penn. Now these reels are called the Fathom and the Squall. Now just looking at the frame and the components on these reels, it appears that these reels are going to be made by Doyo. And in fact, the Squall boasts proven technology from Abu Garcia, so that pretty much confirms Doyo is going to be making these reels. And these reels are using pretty much the same frames as the REVOs and come in sizes ranging from a bass-friendly 200 all the way to a 400 size. Now, both reels will have a metal frame and brass gears, but the more expensive Fathom will feature a metal handle side plate, EVA phone knobs, dual braking, and higher looking gold or red accents on its components. Now the Squall will feature magnetic brakes. Now the 400 size in both models will use the same frame as the Abu Garcia REVO Toro and feature a single power knob. Now one thing that's cool is that both reels are going to be featuring that really cool looking, menacing looking handle. Prices for the Squall range from $149 to $199, and the Fathom ranges from $249 to $299. So the 300 size low profile category just got a little bit more heated with the introduction of these 2 new Penn low profile baitcasters, as well as that Tatula 300. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this year's ICAST coverage with a couple of rods and a lure. Now, unfortunately, there was no new LOOMIS NRX unveiled, but there was the introduction of the new Megabass Destroyer P5 rods. Now, the big deal about these new Megabass Destroyers is the development of what they call 5D graphite. Now, I'm not sure what makes this graphite such a big deal, but it's supposed to be some sort of a new weave pattern, I believe. Now, the Destroyer lineup will have an N-balancing weight system where you can add weights to get the balance to where you want. And also of note is they came up with a new reel seat that mimics the reel seat of a long discontinued JDM rod series, and that's the SHIMANO Final Dimension. Now, the cost is high as expected, with prices starting at about $475. And the only other rod I found interesting from this year's ICAST is from a brand that gets very little attention, unfortunately, and that's Okuma. They came out with the Psycho Stick. Now, I believe this is their most premium line of bass rods to date. Now, as you can see, it has a pretty radical handle that seems to be integrated with the reel seat. Now, this rod series will feature 46-ton low resin carbon blanks. Now, low resin or unfinished blanks tend to be lighter and more sensitive. The rods will use Fuji guides and ceramic inserts. Prices are going to be from $220 to $240, and this is kind of a bold pricing move from Okuma because the Shimano X Pride is not much more money than that. Now the last item I'm going to talk about is going to be a lure, and the only lure that got my attention was the Z-Man Evergreen Jackhammer Stealth Blade Chatterbait. Ever since I've been fishing chatterbaits, I've wondered why no one has ever come out with a clear plastic blade, because the metal blades look pretty unrealistic in the water, especially if it's really clear. Now I always assumed it was because the plastic wouldn't be durable, but here we are a few years later and Z-Man has gone and done it. Now I'm gonna get a couple of these and try them out and see if they make a difference and see just how durable these blades are. Okay guys, so there's my coverage of the tackle that I found interesting at this year's ICAST. If you want, go to Tackle Warehouse's website and they'll show a whole list of all the new items that were unveiled that Tackle Warehouse is going to carry. And unfortunately it was somewhat underwhelming, but there were some standout products that I plan on trying out. And once this selection is over and this pandemic goes away, hopefully next year's ICAST will be a lot better. Okay guys, thanks a lot.